Bond. James Bond.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Did we just become best friends?
Yup! Sublime!
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Tear me apart, Lisa!
But mostly I hate the way I don't hate you. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Not even at all.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of You Haven't Seen That, a movie discussion podcast where we introduce our friend Ben to movies he should have seen a long time ago. I'm your host, Amanda.
I'm Geoff.
And I'm Ben.
And today, we are talking about the third installment in the Harry Potter franchise, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. And stick around until the end. We'll be talking about our top 4 movies or TV shows or episodes that deal with time travel.
Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Year 3 at Hogwarts means new fun and challenges as Harry learns the delicate art of approaching a hippogriff, transforming shape-shifting boggarts into hilarity, and even turning back time. But the term also brings danger. Soul-sucking dementors hover over the school. An ally of the accursed He Who Must Not Be Named lurks within the castle walls, and fearsome wizard Sirius Black escapes Azkaban, and Harry will confront them all. Released in late May in the UK and early June in the US of 2004, the number 1 song on the Billboard Hot 100, Burn by Usher.
Classic.
Just before that, the number 1 song was Yeah by Usher.
Usher had a big 2004. That's
Real
for sure.
big 2004.
Star 102.5's favorite song.
And he did the score to Harry Potter. No.
He has an incredible range.
Incredible. They love him in the UK. The historical sort of moments that I'm going to highlight here are very pop culture related. Ken Jennings recently started his winning streak on Jeopardy around this time. And just a few weeks before this movie came out, the Friends series finale aired. So, end of an era. You know, it was one of those I missed live. I was never a big Friends person kind of in real time. So,
I definitely remember watching that live.
Oh, I bet that was a huge deal, I'm sure.
Yeah.
This movie, we leave the sort of comfort of Chris Columbus and we enter the sort of experimental era of Alfonso Cuarón. He was the director of this movie. In terms of the cast, we return some old favorites such as Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, Maggie Smith, Robbie Coltrane, and Alan Rickman. And we introduce some new characters into the movie. Michael Gambon replaces Richard Harris as Dumbledore. David Thewlis, Gary Oldman, Emma Thompson, and Timothy Spall all join the cast. With a $130 million budget, this movie grossed $808 million at the global box office. This movie opened number 1, overtaking Shrek 2, and it was number 1 for 2 weeks, before it was overtaken by Dodgeball, a true underdog story, in week 3. This movie finished as the number 2 movie at the global box office in 2004, behind Shrek 2. It was the number 6 movie in the US, the number 1 movie globally. This movie has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes and an 82 on Metacritic, which is the second highest for both, behind the movie finale, Deathly Hallows Part 2. And this movie was nominated for 2 Academy Awards, Best Score and Best Visual Effects. It lost both.
Best score for Usher.
Yes, best score for Usher. It lost both to Finding Neverland for score and Spider-Man 2 for VFX.
I thought you were going to say Finding Nemo.
That'd be hilarious.
It's only a matter of time till we get a live action Finding Nemo.
Also, I don't know why my brain cannot comprehend that this movie, Shrek 2, and Dodgeball were all in theaters at the same time.
It's crazy, right?
In my mind, those movies all exist in a very different time frame.
Oh, 1,000%.
Oh, man, that's crazy. All right. Well, thank you, Jeff. Ben, why don't you well, do we have to do history? Do we want to do history? I mean, we've done the first two movies. I
Let's
feel
just
like it's going to be the
briefly.
same, right?
I feel like we got to say something
All right, Ben, tell us
because
something
it's
about your
related to this
history.
specific one.
Okay.
Um, if you're gonna make me do all the Harry Potter movies, Amanda, you're gonna. I don't have any real thing with this specific movie, but what I was gonna mention was that this was the last of the three Harry Potter books that I have read.
Okay.
So
That's right.
I was partway through book four when I stopped reading Harry Potter in college or just out of college. So in college I read these three. So this was as far as I knew, as far as the general story.
Yeah. And what about you, Jeff?
This was the first Harry Potter movie that I did not see on its opening weekend. I had seen the first two on their opening weekends. I did not see this one. And with the book as well, I had read the first two. I was late to jump on the Harry Potter franchise, so I'd read the first two pretty quickly in quick succession after they had come out. But I remember this one distinctly because my grandmother had recently gone over to Ireland on a trip, and she came back with the Irish copies of book 3 and book 4 of the Harry Potter franchise. So I had not read them. I don't think I actually own a physical copy of like the American version of these books, but I weirdly enough have the Irish copy of this book. So it's a movie I've definitely seen a few times, naturally, since it came out, but due to the sort of source material and where it fits within the franchise, it's not necessarily one that I actively revisit the same way I do with the first one or with maybe the finale book, for example, or the finale movie, for example. I have definitely a history with this movie, but it's been a minute since I've seen it, or maybe haven't seen it as much as some of the other ones.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I don't know that I have any specific history with this movie. I've obviously seen it. Usually when Jeff and I watch the Harry Potter movies, we're usually watching them all together. So it's not usually just picking one out and watching it. We're doing like the whole franchise. So definitely seen it a couple times. Probably saw it when it first came out, like opening weekend. I don't remember. That was too long ago, you guys.
You did a double feature with Shrek too.
I mean, maybe I did. I don't, I couldn't tell you.
Looking back, it's definitely something where it's like present me would be all about doing a double feature. This would be like my Barbenheimer back in 2004. Like, absolutely sign me up for a Shrek 2, Harry Potter 3 double feature.
Absolutely. All right, Jeff, why don't you give us your score?
So, this movie I've understood to be like the quote unquote film Twitter favorite. This is the one where, as the core three go from being 12 years old to 13 years old, they're going into puberty, they're going into the teenage years, the movies naturally take a step up. I get it. I see why it's embraced in that sort of way. I do really like this movie, and I do notice a very noticeable step up in the production element of it. So I'm going to give Prisoner of Azkaban a 4.25.
All right. And what about you, Ben?
I gave a 3.25 to each of the first two. Um, I feel aggressively fine about these movies. Um, and I'm curious, I'll get into this later. I'm curious if I find the ones of the books, of the ones that I haven't read the books, more interesting to me. But I do agree with Jeff that it does feel like a step up in terms of quality. I don't know if it was a step up in terms of enjoyment. I'm gonna just knock it up slightly to a 3.5.
All right, all right. That screams aggressively fine.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
It could be worse. It could be Twilight. So, like Jeff mentioned, I've known that this is like people's favorite movie. Like a lot of people love this movie the most. And we can talk about this more, but when I was reading through the books, the third one was always my least favorite. I like just didn't I didn't like rereading this book. I didn't like it. I didn't like the movie as much when it first came out. And for some reason the past couple years, kind of like Geoff said, I get it. Like it's now growing on me and I like it more, way more than I used to. I don't know if I'm interested to like reread the books and see if I would feel the same way about the book, but this movie has definitely grown on me. So I'm giving it a 4.
Yeah,
I remember. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you first, Ben.
No, were you gonna say something about the scores?
No, I was gonna say no, nothing about the scores, but I was gonna say this is the letterboxed favorite. This is definitely like the one that people who maybe don't have a close love or affinity for the franchise like Amanda and I do. This is the one that they gravitate towards because of that step up in quality.
I will say it. I remember it being my favorite book of the three that I read.
Mhm.
And I do think, like I remember I read that this was the first time they used actual location filming. And I actually I remember saying, especially about the first one, that it looked surprisingly cheap to me. The first one. This one looks less cheap for sure.
Yeah. The change in director just really made a world of difference.
And this was the only one he did, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alfonso Cuarón is an interesting director because after this movie, he's only made 3 other movies since then, and all 3 have been like loved. So the movie he did after this was Children of Men, which is one of the most dystopian sci-fi movies like made in the 21st century, but it's also one of the most celebrated and loved. Then he did Gravity, which he won Best Director for at the Oscars, which was loved and lauded and was a massive box office hit. And then he did Roma on Netflix, which was very close to winning Best Picture, and he also won Best Director for. So, yeah, this was a weird sort of like way of getting into the industry, way of getting into sort of the Hollywood big name of it all. And has
He also
done
did the
like
terrible TV show Disclaimer recently.
I was gonna ask about Disclaimer because I never ended up watching it.
It's not worth it. Was he like an artsy director before Harry Potter?
So one of the movies I was gonna recommend actually was one of his earlier movies, but he was did fall into the artsy director camp, if you will, before this movie. I'm not sure exactly of the history as to why he joined this project, but it is interesting to see how it fits within everything that he has done within the grand scope of his work. So yeah, he's done smaller projects before this. He's from Mexico, and they're all Spanish movies and Mexican movies that he's done before this. So it's interesting to see him fit into this, and then where his career has gone after this has been amazing to follow. So
it would have been really interesting if each Harry Potter movie had been by some very distinctive director.
Right?
Like Quentin Tarantino does one and Woody Allen does one.
Kind of would love that.
About that.
Oh no, I would have loved that because so number 4 gets its own unique director, and then 5, 6, 7, and 7 Part 2 all have the same director. Those last 4 movies, David Yates, who's done everything since then. Yeah, I like the idea of having a distinct director for each of them.
Yeah, it's just interesting, like even the small changes that they decide to make. One of my favorite things to look at throughout the franchise is how the kids dress throughout the movies. Because in the first 2 movies, all the kids are in their uniforms all the time. Like you only see them in their ties and robes, and they are very like tidy and buttoned up. In this movie, you'll notice that when they are wearing their robes, their ties are like half undone, their shirts are like kind of untucked, like it's a much messier style. And a lot of the times, you just see them in like regular street clothes too, not even in their robes. And then it just kind of shifts and changes. I feel like in the 4th movie, I feel like they barely wear robes unless they're at like an official like school gathering. I could be misremembering that, but that's like one of my favorite things to look at. And it's like, just an interesting choice everybody makes.
I did make a note that during the Care of Magical Creatures class with Hagrid, how so many of them had their ties undone. And also, I think I noted, I think it was with Ron, just the disaster of a situation of his tie, where it's like the small end is longer than the wide end. And it just, it's a disaster to watch. And it's so like a teenager.
Do you feel like that was a directorial choice, or do you think that symbolizes how Hogwarts is in this season? Because it feels like I said season, this movie, because it feels like to some degree the buttoned up kind of thing, it is a little bit of a different approach directorially, but I also feel like, Hogwarts is maybe a little less strict about their standards in this year at the school as opposed to in the past, but feels like, some of the professors were very buttoned up, but now like they let even Hagrid be a professor, so maybe they just don't care anymore.
Michael Gambon is just letting it go to the dogs.
He's like, I don't even sir, you used to care so much about the ties and the
New Dumbledore, new rules.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, this movie is definitely the turning point, in when everybody hit puberty and definitely became a teenager.
Yeah, they definitely don't seem as much like little kids.
No.
Yeah, there's such a stark difference between 2 and 3.
That always makes me think of that horribly offensive SNL skit with Lindsay Lohan. I'll talk about it after.
Okay.
It's about the Harry Potter cast entering puberty.
Oh, okay. I feel like maybe I know what you're talking about vaguely. And then this is also where it really takes a darker turn.
Yeah.
Literally and
like visually. Yeah, and visually for sure. You can tell, like, even with the intro section, and it just feels darker. It's not as bright, it's not as exciting. Like, these kids are in their world and they're facing new troubles as they're growing up and becoming adults, and you can just tell, like, the mood just shifts so much from the last movie. Even in the beginning, before even Harry's gone to Hogwarts, he is so snappier. He's way more snappy with his uncle and aunt than he was in any prior movie. He's like, yeah, I'm sick of it.
I would be too.
I mean, yeah.
Since we're talking about that, I love the intro to this movie. There's a lot of times I'm just kind of like over whatever they do at the beginning when he's at the Dursleys, and I'm like, no, let's just get to school. But Marge ballooning up and like floating away is so funny. And I think that it's such a great effect. I don't know. I assume it was a mix of like CGI and some practical effect. But I don't know. It's incredible. And I love the night bus. So iconic. If you go to Universal Studios, the night bus is there and you can talk to, what's his face? Good old what's his face? Is his name Stan? I think his name's Stan, who runs the bus, and you can talk to the shrunken head. It's a very fun interaction.
This is one of those things where two of the very distinct memories I have from reading the books. When you read a book, like by the time some of the books came out, I should say, people who are big Harry Potter fans had already started to see some of the movies. I don't think that was the case for this one, because I think this book came out before the first movie. But by the time you got to the later books, some of the earlier movies had already been released. Mm-hmm. And so probably if you were a big Harry Potter person, you already started to kind of have visuals of these. And I'm sure that impacted how you saw them in your head as you were reading. But for me, someone who never watched the movies, and obviously I had a sense of like what Daniel Radcliffe looked like. Didn't live under a rock, but like I didn't have very distinct ideas from the movies of what Harry Potter and the Harry Potter world would look like. So a lot of, and I'm a very, very visual person when I read. Like I picture everything. I picture very elaborate sets in my mind. Maybe that's from my directing side, or I don't know. But it's funny because my wife was like, does not picture that when she reads, but I definitely like create this entire world for it. So sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. A good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. And in this particular case, like as impressive as the night bus and the other place I would say this came up was Hogsmeade at Christmas time. As much as those two looked good in the film, like they have a hard time matching what was in my head.
I can imagine.
And I can't even really describe it, but let me just tell you, it looked awesome. Especially the Hogsmeade at Christmas time. I don't know. I pictured that like more warm and Christmassy than wintry and cold, which is how it was depicted in the film, I felt like.
Yeah, and I think there's slightly different versions of Hogsmeade throughout the different films because they do visit Hogsmeade probably like once a book, I feel like, after this one where they go for the first time. But it is always very, very snowy. But yeah.
Yeah, I do wish they made it prettier, but yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, Ben. It's like I had a different vision of it. There's a video game that came out a few years ago called Hogwarts Legacy, which is essentially like an open world game where you play like a wizard in the Harry Potter universe. But this is before the time of Harry Potter, and you get to venture through Hogsmeade and stuff. And yeah, it's a different sort of idea about like, oh, Hogsmeade looks like this versus, the movies and stuff. So,
well, and I'm very curious, I know people are very trepidatious about this upcoming HBO TV show for so many reasons. But I am curious, like, how visually different they will be. How much of a different vision will they have?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I along the same lines, I do think, like, aside from the fact that I don't know that I want to commit 10 seasons of watching Harry Potter, or the fact that everybody hates J.K. Rowling now, or anything like that, taking all that out of it, I'm curious because I think one of my complaints about all three of these movies, and maybe it would only continue if I had read the other books, but because I know the other books are even longer, but I wonder, will they feel more full because they're 10 episode seasons as opposed to a 2-hour movie? And I feel like things just get the short end of the stick sometimes in these movies compared to the books, understandably.
Yeah.
And I feel like that might only get exasperated in the later movies, which obviously is why they split the last one into two. But 4, 5, and 6 were much longer books. And I already feel like 1, 2, and 3 have cut things out that I liked. Or even if they didn't cut things out, maybe not fully developed things like the way they did in the books.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said.
I mean, that's the plus side to a TV show,
Mm-hmm.
if it's done well.
That's the big thing, is if it's done well.
And they have such a battle set up against them, like you said, for so many reasons. But I think one of the biggest being because, you're saying that the movies didn't live up to what you had pictured in your mind when you read the books. Those of us who read the books when they first came out before the movies even started being made, I obviously altered what I was picturing in my mind as time went on. Right. And I probably couldn't even tell you really what I first imagined when I read the books because it was all just like mixed together.
Right.
But now we all have that in our minds. And now we're going to go into a new thing to try to tell us that things are different. And it's like, no, I want it the way it was.
I always feel like when there's a property, obviously things like IP are always what people drift towards. But often what breaks through or things are not IP. Like the things that break through is like the most loved and the most critically acclaimed, the things that win the awards and stuff like that, with the exception, there are exceptions obviously, but like, or something like Wicked finally, breaking through after all these years or something. But I just feel like this Harry Potter series has so much stacked against it. So if you take like the entire world of people and then you take away the people who don't like Harry Potter and never have, you take away the people who will complain about it not being as good as the books. You take away the people who will complain about it not being as good as the movies. You take away the people who don't used to like it but now are upset with J.K. Rowling. And what is left? Who is left? don't think there's many people left in that.
Probably
No.
not. I'm sure they'll at least have a pretty strong viewing for the first season, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a curiosity factor.
Yeah, absolutely. People like me who are interested enough that they'll give it a try and see where it goes, see how well they do it. And if they do it well, then I'll stick with it. I'm always up for more Harry Potter. Not the Fantastic Beasts franchise, but I'm always up for more Harry Potter content. So since you had read the book, did you remember all of the plot points to this, or was there anything that kind of like surprised you? You're like, oh, I forgot about that.
If you had quizzed me before the movie, no. But as I was watching it, I did remember a lot of it.
Okay. Yeah, you're like, oh, okay. Coming back
Yeah.
to me now.
Yeah. All the time stuff I'd kind of not remembered. But once it got going, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I do remember all this.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, this, like I said, was my least favorite book. And it was my least favorite book because I was always mad that Voldemort doesn't actually show up in this book at all.
Yeah.
And I was always like, this
Who's
one
your
is so
favorite?
boring.
Big
My
Voldemort
favorite
fan over
character.
here.
Yeah, big Voldemort fan.
No, it's just like, the other two books, like there's this big confrontation at the end with Voldemort, and he was always showing up in a different form, whether it was in Quirrell, the first one, or through the diary in the second one. And so then this one just felt kind of boring in comparison of like, oh, okay, like you have this escape convict, cool, but then like he's actually not, and he's a good guy. So you're like, oh, okay. And then Peter Pettigrew ends up getting away and whatever. So you're just like, all right, I guess.
Right.
Like, but I mean, it is exciting, I think, now when I watch it. Like, I'm like, no, all this stuff that they're doing, like, this is really exciting. And I appreciate the beginnings to learning more about Harry's parents, especially his father, and kind of the friend group that they had. And that goes so much deeper in the later movies. And this is really just laying the groundwork for that. And just so heartbreaking when Sirius is like, you want to come live with me, Harry? And he's like, yeah. Then it's like dreams crushed 10
Right.
minutes later.
Real quick. Yeah, I noticed that especially with this movie where there's a lot of attention paid toward how Harry is like his parents. It's like, oh, you're acting just like your dad, but you've got your mom's eyes. Oh, you're just like your dad in this way, or just like your dad in that way. And again, drives home the fact that they're not just kids anymore, but they're teens. They've gone through puberty. They're starting to look like their parents. And so much time is spent around that, which makes it more sad about how Harry is like these people who we understand at this time to be sweet and nice and have so much to live for and would have been great role models for Harry as he's grown up, especially in the situation he lives in outside of Hogwarts. So yeah, really drives home the fact that we're starting to go to the stage that Harry is starting to become a grown-up. Harry's starting to become, hey, realize you're an adult now and realize your potential, realize who you're like, and also driving home the fact that he missed so much in his childhood. They really drive that home a lot in this movie.
Yeah, I one of my favorite / not favorite things about the movie and just everything is because, especially in this movie, how many times do people say that Harry has his mother's eyes? And this continues throughout the books, throughout the movies. People are always commenting, like, you have your mother's eyes. And then in the movies, when Harry's mom has brown eyes and he has like greenish bluish eyes. And so there's tons of memes about that, like someone shoving his face in a mirror, like, you have your mother's eyes. And he's like, yes. But it's just such a silly thing that like they could have just made her wear contacts or something. Like, I don't understand why they didn't try to do that when it's such a fixed point that people say so many times.
Yeah, that seems odd.
Just a little bit. Is there anything from this movie that like stood out to you, maybe performance-wise? We've introduced so many new characters to this movie. David Thewlis as Lupin, Gary Oldman as Sirius Black. We still have our usual staples coming in here. We have a whole new Dumbledore. Was there anything that stood out to you guys, maybe from like a performance perspective or new character perspective, that maybe made this movie stand out differently compared to some of the other ones?
I felt, for me at least, that I felt like Dumbledore did not make as much of an impression.
Interesting.
I felt like the Dumbledore from the first two was very much like that kindly grandpa
Yeah.
vibe that imagined in the books. This one, and I also don't think Dumbledore is as prominent a character in this one. So, maybe I'll hold reserve judgment for later movies, but
Right.
to me, I liked the original more. I don't know what the consensus is of that among Harry Potter fans.
That is the consensus.
Okay. There we go. Then I feel good about my choice.
There's a very
no.
there's a very memorable moment specifically in the fourth movie and how it differentiates from the book that stands out from like the Dumbledore perspective in terms of his demeanor and manner. But yeah, I agree that there is a distinct difference. Like obviously Richard Harris versus Michael Gambon, one is maybe slightly more youthful, quote unquote, than the other. So it is accentuated even more. But yeah, there's a noticeable difference.
It's not the youthfulness, it's the aggressiveness. Michael
Okay, that's
Gambon
fair.
is so aggressive as Dumbledore, and you'll see that more as we watch these farther in bed, but like he just is so aggressive. I don't understand why. Maybe he never read the books and no one ever told him anything. I don't know, but like the very nature of Dumbledore, right, is that he is this like gentle, peaceful, like old man. And Michael Gambon's like, no, absolutely not. For me, I love Lupin. He is like one of my all-time favorite characters. Whoever designed the werewolf that he turns into, like, this is very creepy. Like, probably one of the creepiest versions of a werewolf I've ever seen. And which again, if this had been a different director, that werewolf probably would have looked a lot different. But I love Lupin. Super pumped to get the Dementors in this movie.
The worst part about
The worst
prison
part
was
about
the
prison.
I will never ever hear the word Dementors without thinking of that.
Definitely the worst part. But yeah, they are just, man, when they like first come in on the train, I got goosebumps. Like they're so cool looking, and
Hmm.
just everything about them is just awesome.
It's such a menacing character design and such a truly haunting character idea, especially with the way they sit outside the school or when they get involved with the students on the day to day, like even with Harry during its Quidditch match. It is so creepy and haunting. I love it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I agree with the Lupin point as well. You can even notice it too with the direction of the movie and the decisions that it makes. How scenes with Harry and Lupin together are given, there are no breaks in the camera. They're just given extended shots, extended scenes where they're just, the camera never cuts. They just sit and talk, and it just is listening in on them, and they just are having, the two characters just having conversations with each other. It is so cool to see. And I like that choice from the direction where it's like, okay, these kids are now grown-ups. We're going to treat them like grown-ups. We're going to give them extended conversations. We're going to talk to them like adults. We're going to force them to have conversations like adults. And none of that is more accentuated than the scenes with Lupin, whether it be outside the grounds or in the classroom or whenever. David Thewlis and Daniel Radcliffe are given long stretches to engage and talk and everything, and I love it. And you build that relationship with Lupin then, not just in this movie, throughout the rest of the movies. So I agree with you, Amanda. It's such a great character introduction.
Yeah. And also shout out to Gary Oldman and Emma Thompson, who are both incredible.
Yes,
Yeah.
amazing.
Always. I I think one of the things that I've really liked about the Harry Potter franchise in general, I mentioned this, I can't remember if I mentioned this back when we did another Harry Potter movie, but I definitely talked about it a little bit in Ghostbusters, is that I love when ridiculous things are treated mundanely. And I feel like Harry Potter
Yes.
has always done an exceptional job at that, where the characters, they're going through this magic school, but yet it's being treated like school. And the kind of, oh, I have to get my books for this class, and I have a lot of homework for this class, and I love that it's treated kind of so ordinary at times. And I think that extends, like you were saying, Jeff, that I feel like they're starting to feel more like teenagers. It's starting to feel less like middle school and closer to upper middle school into high school by the time you get into this book. And I think that's reflected well with, I think they always have done a good job of kind of the characters seeming the age they are.
Yes, agreed. And even with like the interactions in between the student groups, for example, the first scene that we see with like Harry and Ron engaging with other boys in Gryffindor, there you can tell they are all friends. They're all hanging out with each other. They're all like just chatting back and forth within the Gryffindor common room. It's like, yeah, you can tell that they've been friends for a while. When in the first movies, it's like they're still trying to get to know each other and everything. And that, again, builds on to the whole, like, they're growing up. They're teenagers now. This is a new step for them. So, all really well done in that regards.
And then that becomes even more apparent as you move on, and there's even more love thrown in, some drama.
This is the case
Yep.
Yeah.
with teenagers.
Which they hinted to a few times in this one, when Hermione grabbed Ron's hand in the Care of Magical Creatures class, and I think when they were down at the Shrieking Shack.
Yep. Not spoiler alerts, but yeah, definitely hinting at some things for sure.
Yeah, well, just some romantic interests
That's really explored in the fourth one.
and beyond.
And beyond, obviously. It takes a step up and then in the next one, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I never knew this or if I forgot this fact, but I did not remember that the phrase "I solemnly swear I'm up to no good" is from Harry Potter.
Really?
Oh, okay.
Like I know that expression, and then like, but I feel like if you had quizzed me before and said, "What is this from?" I don't know that I would have remembered it was Harry Potter.
Interesting.
Yeah, fun fact.
Yeah. That's all I can think of whenever I hear that phrase.
I'm sure. I don't even think it's been generalized that much, but maybe it has to some degree. But I think it's been generalized by Harry Potter fans because it's Harry Potter.
That makes sense.
And people putting it as like their bio on social media or something. But like, I think I probably knew when I read it that it was from there, but I definitely did not remember.
Yeah. I think one of the things that bothers me the most about the Marauders map in the movie, and I can't remember if this is specifically called out in the book and they like addressed it somehow. You're supposed to be able to see like everyone on the map, but every time Harry looks at it, there's like about 3 or 4 people walking around, and I'm like, there's thousands of kids at this school. Like that map should constantly be full of people walking around.
I will say there's one thing that I noticed with this time around with the Marauders map, that like you only see certain folds of it. You only see certain like sections of it. I have a feeling like this map is massive. Like it is
I mean, it is
huge folded out parchment. So I don't know. And also we're only looking at it like a couple of times. Like the one real time where you're really zoned in on it is like in the dead of night when Peter Pettigrew as the mouse is scurrying through and Snape is then walking up around the corridor. So every other student is asleep in their common rooms. So
yes, but
I don't
there's
know.
many other times they show that map and there's like nobody walking around. Like how very convenient that there's always like Dumbledore, Snape, Filch, Harry Potter. Like the key characters are always featured on the map. It's very convenient.
I also like how this map has lasted for years and years and years and years. Like Lupin knows of this map, Sirius Black knows of the map. So they all embrace it. Probably James Potter did back in the day as well. So they all know of the map. So
Is it ever explained or talked about if do the professors live at the school?
They live there, yeah.
They live at the school.
Yeah.
They don't just
Like go home at the end
commute.
of the day. No.
hilarious commute. I'm just picturing
I
it now,
don't-
them all hopping in brooms, being like, okay, bye.
I mean, because I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of private schools, the professors don't live on I mean, like an RA type of,
Right.
Yeah. I don't know that they ever like explicitly say it, but I mean, there's many times where the kids have to wake up professors like in the middle of the night, or the
That's true.
professors are just up in the middle of the night, or catch them doing things or whatever. So I have to assume that they all
It's a
have
pretty involved
like
job.
a sleeping quarters on
Seriously.
property.
It's like a boarding school professor or whatever, right?
Yeah, but even that, like, I don't know that the professors, I don't know that the teachers, there's usually like a resident staff. I think like a college, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's like a residence life staff, and then there's like the professors.
That's
They're
fair.
very committed to
Feels like a lot of work.
it is a lot of work.
I'm sure they're not paid enough to do all that.
Yeah, probably not. Let's see.
I will say with this movie, I know, Amanda, you always mention at the end of our discussions, like, oh, do you guys have anything else to share? I have so many more just like one-off notes with this movie than I have with maybe any other movie we've done in like at least in recent memory. A lot of sort of like one-off notes around like when we see in the Leaky Cauldron, when Harry shows up very early on in the movie, some guy is randomly reading Stephen Hawking books. So like there's that crossover between the Muggle world and the Wizarding world. Leave it to Harry to break the law and just get away with it because he's Harry Potter. You're like, oh yeah, you can't use magic, but it's okay. Probably because if we
Really do
Always
it.
special rules for Harry.
I know, always.
Yeah, but it's like in the first book where he let the snake out. It's like he didn't consciously really
Are you
do
sure
it.
are you sure about that though with this one?
Yeah. I mean, he did not pull his wand out and be like, Margus blow upicus. Like
All right, that's
he
fair.
just got really mad and the magic came out of him.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. There are so many times where it is foreshadowed that Lupin is a werewolf, and I never quite got it. And many other times seeing this movie, such as when Lupin steps in front of Harry with the boggart, and it changes from the Dementor to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
It weirdly wasn't until like this time where I was like, I snapped my fingers. I was like, wait a second, I get it. This isn't just, hey, we're calming down the Dementor. Like, no, this is actually Lupin's fear. He's afraid of the moon. Also, just the whole scene. This is a one-off thing, and I promise this will be the last one. The one-off scene where Snape is teaching the dark arts class, where the famous line, turn to page 394, is said, and Harry tries to use athletics and sports to get out of homework in school. Like, Harry would fit in so perfectly to the modern, like, school system and American sports academic system, where it's like, oh, but I've got a Quidditch match this weekend. I can't write this paper about werewolves. Sorry. I feel like he would fit in so perfectly with the college
Tell you,
sports system in America.
the high school teachers where I work love when the kids use musical as a reason for why they can't get their work done.
Oh,
And
I bet.
I always hear about
I'm
it from them,
sure.
and then I always have to be like, stop saying musicals are a reason you can't get your work done.
I mean, the teachers know that you're not telling them to say
Well,
that,
no,
right?
of course they
Yeah.
don't think I'm like encouraging it, but I think they think, that the kids are using the time to their best of their ability, and and I'm like, well, maybe they're not using their time as effectively as they could be.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do. They need to learn time management skills. Let's see. There were a couple of things I wanted to just point out. One scene that I thought was absolutely hilarious was when Marge was floating away And the shot was on Dudley watching TV, not concerned at all with what was happening. And behind him out in the yard, you can see Petunia and Vernon like on their knees in the yard, like screaming, like, ah. And there's Dudley just watching TV, not a care in the world. Ron almost forgot to bring Scabbers at the beginning of the year, which I thought was funny. Mrs. Weasley is like running to catch the train as it's leaving, and she's like, "You forgot Scabbers." And she's trying to hand it off, which would have been interesting. It wouldn't have unfolded the way it would have if he had forgotten him.
I feel like that's the book trying to, or slash movie trying to like plant the importance of Scabbers
Probably.
Yeah,
early on.
probably.
There are a lot of, obviously in this movie, there's a lot more talk of pets with
Yeah.
Crookshanks and Scabbers. They are brought up a lot in this movie. And it's kind of like, you're like, oh, I know why now, because it turns out being very important. I do absolutely love the Boggart scene where it's kind of like the little like musical montage number. I feel like we don't get a lot of those in the Harry Potter franchise, and it's very entertaining. So I love that. And oh, also, I just had to laugh at the fact that Fred and George have had the Marauders map for like 4 or 5 years. I can't remember when they said they originally got it. And Harry had it for all of like a month maybe before it got confiscated. I'm like, leave it to Harry to just like be doing dumb stuff and get caught with it and get it taken away. And
It
Fred
does
and
make me
George-
wonder, like, I remember thinking about this when I was reading the book. Like, in the years between, like, perhaps when Harry Potter's parents or Dumbledore were children or was, attending Hogwarts, like, did it just, like, was it just kind of chill for, like, 30 years? Like, because I feel like once Harry gets there, crazy stuff
It's
happens.
insane.
Well, there was like someone getting murdered in the Chamber of Secrets
I guess that's true.
back
Yeah.
in the day. So, there was that. Maybe not totally chill all the time.
Sure seems like it though.
Yeah, right. And then my final note, yeah, to Hermione punching Draco. I love that part.
Oh, it's so satisfying.
So deserving.
And the beauty of this movie with the time travel is you get to see it twice.
Yep.
I did love the use of time sort of manipulation and time travel with this movie. I think when movies explore it, I always find it interesting to see how there are different movies that explore it and how they do it. I do like how this movie does it, where it's like, oh, we'll go back and walk alongside it, but it also affects like this other sort of storyline and pathway with the movie, but it doesn't. It's very effective, I think, with how it's done.
I appreciate that they're doing it to try to save innocent people who don't deserve the fate that they're going to receive otherwise. And also with the knowledge of the rest of the franchise, I appreciate that they don't take advantage of time travel. Like they use it in this book and movie. And I think the time turner is used like one other time in one of the books, but like that's it.
Yep.
And I know they live in a magical world, so there's a lot of different shortcuts and things that they can do that you wouldn't normally be able to do, but I appreciate that they're not always just like, let's pull out our time turner and like fix that mistake and do this and that. They used it sparingly, which is great.
And it's only with Hermione, initially the idea is just, hey, Hermione's just taking more than however many classes. Like, oh, this nerd is just trying to get smarter and do more and whatever. And then it's shown to be bigger. I know it's used a lot more in like The Cursed Child, which is different and outside of the sort of mainline Harry Potter franchise. But yeah, it's not really ever used too much more than that.
Yeah. All right, Ben, any last thoughts?
No, I just thought the very final second of like Harry frozen up, and I was like, that's a little bit of an odd thing to end on.
It's so early 2000s.
It is. It's like it doesn't quite feel like the tone of the rest of the movie.
Yeah. It's also, I think, I could be very wrong on this, but I think it's one of a few that doesn't end with him like going on the train and going home.
Oh yeah.
So many of them, the ending is like, well, it's the end of the school year. Let's get back on the Hogwarts Express and go home. And they have a little reflection on the year and say goodbye to people, whatever. And obviously, I don't think Seven Part One doesn't end that way.
Nope.
And this one doesn't end that way. But I think those might be the only two. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. Alrighty. Geoff, why don't you give us some movie recommendations?
Absolutely. So I'm going to start with So I've got three here. The first one I'm going to talk about is the Alfonso Cuarón of it all. So the movie he did before Harry Potter was Y Tu Mamá También. And that would probably be the movie I would recommend to start with that if you're going to go with the Cuarón route. Normally I would say like, oh, do Children of Men, which is a masterpiece. But no, I think that movie, Y Tu Mamá También, has more to do with this movie. Not just because the central three characters are two boys and a girl, but also it's about like growing up and maturity. It's about two guys it's more of a mature movie, so if you're going to try to watch that movie with kids, don't. It's about two like younger adult men who kind of get linked up with an older woman, and there's a journey of like sexual discovery and maturing and whatever. So it is very sort of explicit in that sense, but also it's a journey of self-discovery, which is what our teens are going through in this movie. So I would probably recommend that movie to start. And then we're going to dive into the time travel of it all. And I'll say Back to the Future. Just, hey, guess what? We're going back in time. We're correcting some mistakes and we're messing around with history and everything like that. So we'll go with Back to the Future as number 2. And then number 3, I'm going to look at some of the characters that are introduced with this and the actors specifically that are introduced with this, namely Gary Oldman. So there are certain scenes within this movie where it's like, I'm thinking of the Shrieking Shack scene where David Thewlis and Gary Oldman and Alan Rickman are just going toe to toe with each other. And it almost feels like a Shakespearean stage where it's like this British showcase of A-tier actors just going at it with each other. So I'm going to dive into the Gary Oldman of it all in the British sort of world, and I'll say Darkest Hour, which is the movie that he won his Oscar for portraying Winston Churchill. So those would be the 3 movies I will recommend to pair with Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Great. Thank you. Ben, what are our TV recs?
So, I don't watch a lot of things that are similar to Harry Potter on TV, but jumping off what Geoff said, if you like Gary Oldman, a lot of people like Slow Horses, currently airing on Apple TV Plus in its 5th season already, I believe. And it's already been renewed for at least a 6th, maybe even a 7th. A lot of people like it. I gave it a try. It wasn't really for me, but a lot of people are big fans of it. Another one that I've never watched is but when I searched what are TV shows similar to Harry Potter, I got the Magicians. Maybe I can't recommend disclaimer, so I had to stay away from Alfonso Cuarón. And then the other one I'd mentioned was sort of along the time continuum situation, and I didn't want to get into the top 4 territory here, so I'll mention one that I didn't actually finish, but I thought was interesting in the time continuum discussion was the show Frequency, based on the movie. Ran for a year on the CW in a year that I'll talk about in a minute when I get to my top 4. But it's about a girl, woman, older teenager. I don't remember if she's old teenager, young adult, but she can communicate with her dead father by ham radio. So it definitely messes with like the time continuum there a little bit. And I remember thinking it was interesting, and then I didn't stick with it. And I was like, well, maybe I'll come back to it, and I never did. But it's based on a movie also called Frequency, starring Dennis Quaid from 2000. And I have not seen that, so there we go.
Cool.
So not my best list of recommendations, but I did what I could.
I do want to shout out, based on the Cuarón of it all, you mentioned there, Ben, you were talking about this gamer. I do want to shout out Cuarón for being the 2-time Academy Award winner for Best Director and winning it for 2 movies that he's done in a row, and how he is the most celebrated director probably of any of the directors that have been associated with this franchise. So yes, disclaimer, maybe not the greatest thing in the world, but it's interesting to see someone like him get involved with a franchise like this.
He also committed a cardinal sin when he was making a disclaimer because he was interviewed and proudly talked about it being a 7-part movie. And nobody who's into TV wants to hear any director say that because that is not what TV is.
Yes.
Alfonso. Nobody wants to watch a 7-hour movie. If you did that, then it would be a movie. People want to watch TV because it's episodic.
Yep.
And, you can have stories that continue, but you don't just take a movie and hack it into 7 parts, which is basically what he thought he was proudly doing, which tends to happen when people from the movie world come to TV for the first time. They think that's like an appealing thing to say, and it really turns TV fans off. The Marvel did the same thing with their shows, and we saw how those went.
That's funny.
But I'll just step right off my soapbox now.
All right. Well, with that, let's move into our top 4. So, like I mentioned at the top, we are doing movies and TV shows, maybe TV episodes specifically. We didn't really clarify that have to do with time travel.
Or mess with time. I want to be clear. Because Geoff said time travel or mess with time, because that can be a little bit of a different thing.
Yeah, that's true. Has any sort of tomfoolery with time.
Tomfooleries.
All right, Geoff, let's hear your list first.
Awesome. So number 4, I'm going to start with Groundhog Day. This was the toss-up between Groundhog Day and Palm Springs because of the similar sort of themes and direction it goes. But I figured Groundhog Day, I love that movie. I've only seen it just a couple of times, but I love it every time I see it. And I think the idea of being just stuck in loop with just this one day explicitly is just so funny, and trying to break out of it is a really interesting concept. So I love the direction that way goes. Number 3, I'm going to do Avengers Endgame. I know we haven't explored the MCU on this podcast, so Ben, slight spoilers for this. But in the finale to the Infinity Saga of the MCU, we explored the idea of kind of going back in time and messing around with things to ensure the proper timelines going forward and making sure that we're able to defeat the grand supervillain of it all. So I loved the way they approached time travel in Avengers Endgame, and they have a whole section where they try to explain it to not only one of the characters, but ultimately to us, how it's different than, say, something like Back to the Future and what's being done, and how you have your main timeline, but like if you mess with stuff, it branches off into other timelines, so things necessarily aren't as affected in this world. So I love the way it's explored there, so I'm going to go with that as my number 3. Number 2 is Arrival. Slight spoilers. Again, I know it's a movie we're considering exploring here on this podcast, but there's a really, really cool idea of time and how events of the present tie into events of the past, but also affect events of the future. And the way that's explored with the alien invasion that comes within that movie. Arrival is, I love Denis Villeneuve as a filmmaker, and I know I adore the Dune movies and adore Blade Runner 2049 and Prisoners, but Arrival is one of those movies where I sit there and I'm like, man, this is good. And then number 1 is the Christopher Nolan of it all. Christopher Nolan is a director who messes around with time so much, not just with some of the movies that we covered here on this podcast, like Inception, but I'm going to go with Interstellar, which anyone who maybe is a Letterboxd user or on film Twitter or whatever is rolling their eyes as I have that as my number 1. But the idea and how time and kind of going back in time affects that movie and what goes on there is so amazing with how that movie unfolds. I love that movie so much. The love I have for that movie grows with each time I see it. Interstellar is my number 1 for the mess around with time/time travel movie top 4.
You had me worried. Thought you were going to say Tenet.
No, not
I
Tenet.
was like, don't you dare pick
I was going to say when when Jeff suggested top four things that mess with time, I was like, if number one is not a Christopher Nolan movie, then something is amiss with Jeff. We need to have the
I
doctors
will
look at him.
say, Tenet would not necessarily be the top four on my list, but the way they're the idea at least in which they explore going back in time with that movie is sick. It's just straight up sick. So no, it had to be a Christopher Nolan movie somewhere on this list.
All right, good list. Ben, let's hear yours.
All right. My number four is Russian Doll, Netflix show
Ooh.
starring Natasha Lyonne.
Great show.
Specifically the first season, because the second season was not very good. But the first season, in addition to being a time loop and interesting in that way, also very distinct New York show. Very distinct for its neighborhood and area of New York, which I really appreciated and liked. It feels like one of those two. Like, I feel like there's certain shows that have the feel of like just before COVID New York and the era, and that one definitely, I feel like, definitely captures that time. Number three is Groundhog Day, the musical, because I've not seen the movie, but I saw the musical in 2017, and it did not do well on Broadway. It did a little bit better in London. I really loved it, though, and it is now available for licensing. So I know a community theater around here did it not too long ago, and it's from the composer, like who did Matilda, the musical. I didn't love the music, but I thought the staging and the way it was done, it's tricky to do a concept like Groundhog Day on stage, and they really captured some of those repetitive moments very effectively, I thought. And it was, the kind of the wintry Puxatawny kind of feel of it all, and it was very enjoyable. I'd like to see it again sometime. Number two, Timeless, the NBC TV show. So I mentioned Frequency. Very strange situation in 2016, 2017. There were 4 new shows on the broadcast network that season, all related to time travel or time continuum things. There was Frequency and Timeless, and then there was a show called Time After Time on ABC, and a comedy called Making History on Fox. And it was like a very strange year in development where four time travel shows made it onto TV at the same time. But Timeless was definitely my favorite of those. I am actually a really big fan of time travel when they go in the past, not so much when they go in the future. And in Timeless, it's about kind of the first season is about this villain who goes back into history to mess with things, and there's like kind of an overarching reason. It's kind of convoluted, it doesn't really matter. But the point is that they go back to a different time famous event in history in each episode. So the first episode is the Hindenburg, second episode is the Lincoln assassination. They do a whole bunch of things. And then the second season has a little bit of a different overarching plot, but the same thing. They're going back to different times. And then it ended with a 2-hour movie. Fans famously saved the show. It was canceled after the first season, and fans had a big, campaign that got it uncanceled. It came back for a second season, then it did get canceled, but then it got a wrap-up movie. So I really, really love this show. It's a real guilty pleasure. I don't want to sit here and say it's a great piece of art, but boy, did I love it. And I was very sad when it ended. And I have rewatched some of it since, and then I was kind of slowly making my way back through it, and then it got pulled off of, I think, Hulu or whatever it was on, so I didn't finish a rewatch of it. But I really, really love this show. And if you're into time travel, especially going back in time, and especially like historical events, it only scratches the surface with all of them, but it's fun. It's a fun experience to see them in those different things. And then number one is, of course, Back to the Future, which is an all-time favorite movie of mine. I know Amanda hasn't seen that, which may be rectified sometime soon. But I just love Back to the Future. I love everything about it. Definitely an all-timer for me. Probably a top 10 all-time movie for me. And so that, of course, had to be number one.
Love that.
All right. Good list. I'll see it at some point.
Yeah.
So let's see. I struggled with making this list. I was like Googling different things, and a lot of the stuff that was coming up, I was like, I have not seen any of this. So apparently I'm not very well versed in time travel or messing with time, but I did like your mention of Russian Doll, Ben. So I'm going to throw that as an honorable mention because I did love the first season of that show. So my number 4 is just Family Guy in general. It's a plot point that Stewie has a time travel machine, and him and Brian and other various members of the family time travel many, 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 many times throughout the lifetime of Family Guy's run on TV. So some are better than others, but I just wanted to kind of give a general Family Guy shout out to my number 4 spot. Number 3 is Palm Springs, which very similar to the Groundhog Day, just modernized, and with 2 people instead of 1. And I really feel like I need to rewatch that movie, but I do remember being very pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it. And it was just a really good movie. My number 2 is Doctor Strange, which is still to this day probably one of my most favorite Marvel movies. I know a lot of people don't love it, but they don't necessarily time travel, but as Doctor Strange does, he is always messing with time and I don't even know if he messes with time, but kind of. He can like pause things and go into the mirror dimension, and it's very Christopher Nolan-esque. So I think he fits in there well. And then my number 1 is Meet the Robinsons, which is one of my favorite underrated Disney movies of all time. And that most certainly involves time travel to the future, not to the past. But, well, someone time travels to the past, but then to the future, then back to the past.
I had a feeling you were going to pick that movie, Amanda.
Yeah. I mean, how could I not? Yeah. Really good one. So that wraps us up on Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban for today. If you'd like to watch along with us, next week we'll be visiting Midnight in Paris. So definitely give that a watch and then tune in to hear our thoughts.
Which apparently also has stuff to do with time, because when I was searching time things, I kept seeing that appear.
Same.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm excited.
I was like, oh no, I hope we're not regretting our choice to do this category this week.
I know. I thought the same thing.
Hopefully there's maybe we can do something Paris related next week. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a rating or review and follow us on all our social channels. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see y'all next week.
To infinity and beyond!
Why so serious?
I am serious, and don't call me Geoff.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.